GangsterBet is Icon's next generation NFT collectibles of 5,555 gangsters and detectives, with changeable names and stats. Holders of GangsterBet NFTs receive daily distributions of GBet tokens. GBet can be used to upgrade their NFT skills and stats. The supply of GBet will decrease over time and will stop after 9 years. Holding GangsterBet NFTs will have opportunities for future airdrops and will give you access to GangsterBet's highly anticipated metaverse. Learn more at gangsterbet.io. Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we go around the ecosystem and interview all our builders. And today we have a special episode. It's all around Icon Bridge. And you know what? We've got the man himself who has spent the most time building the BTP aspect for Binance Smart Chain. With me today is Mo. Mo, how are you?
Hey Fez, I'm good. Thanks for having me on the channel. Just give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Mo. I work as a CDO at Web3 Labs, and I've been working closely with the Icon Foundation for the past year or so. Primarily focused on the interoperability and BTP work for Binance Smart Chain, as well as actually being involved in a few other strategic and design thinking around BTP in different areas. Involved in BTB2 and multiple areas related to ICE network and the future development of Icon Bridge.
Yeah. I've heard ice and snow. If anyone was wondering what that was, but yes, so you kind of got your hands in everything, Mo. All the like BTP being the product for Icon. You've got your hands in there. Ice and Snow being the next extension product that gives us new reach and potential. You're intertwined in that as well. So you're definitely the right man to have on the show today. So I am getting this vibe that I'm going to get some serious alpha from you today. No pressure, no pressure.
I do feel the pressure.
Okay. So Mo, let's make this. Let's start off like we do with every interview. You've got a technical background, and obviously, but how did you get started in crypto? What drove you to crypto, and made you think, you know what, I'm going to pivot from what I'm doing and actually build stuff in the land of blockchain?
Yeah, sure. I do have quite a long career in finance and investment banking in particular. Sometime around 2012, where I started to be aware of Bitcoin. At the time, to be honest, it didn't really get my attention so much. My first understanding of Bitcoin was something that I would just relate to was the game Second Life, where I was just thinking about virtual currencies. And at the time, there was sometime in 2005, 2006, the Second Life. It's a virtual
Yes.
game. It has a Linden dollar, which became quite popular at the time. And there was an exchange that has opened, and there were virtual lands being sold for $25,000, which is quite a lot at the time if we obviously compare to what we see in NFTs now. And that was my very basic understanding of Bitcoin. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even read the white paper, and I didn't just think about the whole details behind the project. Sort of brushed it off a little bit. I did make quite an attempt at mining with Litecoin, because initially it's what sounded like the cheapest option if you want to try proof of work.
Yeah.
And then after a week, I just gave up because it just looked like very inefficient, very mundane process at the time.
Yeah.
And then a few years forward, sometime around 2015, was a number of people started to have this uh, um, just basically coworkers and colleagues were just having pretty much a daily conversation about the price of Bitcoin.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was crazy when it started to go above 100 and then 200 and so on. And this is where things start to get interesting. And then this is where you start to get back into it, read more about the technology and see what makes this thing valuable. And this is where I would say, short story of how I got into crypto, and started to, at the time, start to obviously look at, the space, and trying to understand it more and get more into it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, awesome. It's interesting because you obviously got in that cycle earlier, but the way you described that work is something similar that I went through in the 2016, 2017 cycle, and I labeled it crypto chat. But as soon as the markets turned, no one wanted to get involved in crypto chat. It was just me addicted to crypto and everyone else ignoring me. But
Mm.
yeah, that's why I didn't last much longer there. But
Yeah,
okay, Mo, that's great. Thank you for that backstory. Now, let's dive in, okay? Everyone's listening because this is kind of the first time we're hearing someone who's worked on BTP. So, what I'm keen to know is if from memory, when Icon released the BTP, I remember they dropped this real technical video. There was no product, nothing. It was like, this is our solution to interoperability. There was this video. It was a very tech heavy video. So, you literally needed someone to decipher what was going on, what the technology meant. What I'm keen to know is what was your thoughts when you first got shown the BTP architecture?
yeah, sure. So it was initially, obviously, it was a lot of learning for having to look firsthand on BTP itself. If you look at the high level, BTP, broadly speaking, is a message passing protocol. The
Mm,
whole idea is you have those heterogeneous blockchain systems, and you want to have an abstraction around how you're passing messages. The way you would basically simply just pass, like send emails, you have a standard protocol, and then between the different email servers, they communicate.
mm,
Obviously, there's a lot of differences here because in blockchain, you have constraints around security, and there's properties that you need to preserve. And the key thing about also these networks is in a way, as soon as you start to go off the chain and you start to take things out, you're kind of violating, or at least at the risk of violating the security or compromise the security of this network. So BTP does quite a good job at first abstraction to providing the spec that you want to need to think about how you want to preserve these properties. And the key thing there is actually through this, it does the whole cryptographic verification on a chain.
mm.
So in a way, every smart contract that lives in a source and destination chain pretty much acts like a light client. Um, yeah, that was sort of in summary what would first feeling about BTP architecture.
Yeah, and Mo, now honest question, and you can share your view. So when you got your head across it, and given that obviously you would have had your head across blockchain, the way it's built, and from a technical standpoint as well, were you impressed with the tech, with what it
Uh,
was?
I was impressed with the tech. I have to say there's a bit of mix. So just to also, for transparency,
Please.
the Icon project, or the I would say, as far as I know, it's been one of the earliest projects to actually think about interoperability. So
Mm,
a lot of things has evolved since then. If you think about other projects like Polkadot, and when they start to think about the interoperability itself as a first order protocol rather than just using smart contracts. But and even with the not just Icon, with Ethereum today, which is based on all their hash signatures and all their classic algorithms, more of an older version of the SHA-3, for instance, or SHA-2. Would have Icon itself is a mix of old and new, and this is one example of that. Icon is currently decommissioning or migrating off, for example, Python or
mhm,
PyScore smart contracts. So they going through iterations trying to refresh the tech, not necessarily saying that Python is something that is good or bad, which to get rid of Python is actually predominant. It's quite dominant in the finance world and data analytics,
mm,
but it might not be the most secure, tech to actually build smart contract with. Obviously, it depends on how you do it. And the other thing about the technology with with Icon in particular, Icon Loop, it's very diverse tech. If you gotta for most devs or for most developers, it might not be easy to get into because you have to deal with with a broad range. Obviously, if you are specialized in building just smart contract, for example, and you're building smart contract on the Java side, which is what Java Score is. It allows those Java developers who are familiar with the just languages to build smart contract based Java, and the, and that area actually is quite fit for the enterprise. But then you have a set of other technology that you have to learn, especially if you're building the PTP, the core product itself or the core function is written in Golang.
Mm.
Um, then you have still have Python or PyScore, and then you have JavaScore, which is Java. Um, this itself also added some challenges as well, which we can talk a little bit about it, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. Well, let's get to that. So I guess you've told us a bit about that, the architecture. Now, let's dive into what you actually built. So, what integration did you kick off your journey with BTP?
We started with the Binance Smart Chain. Um,
Okay. Now, tell us how that went. Keen to know what challenges you faced overall, because what the community knows and I know, we know that we got to a certain stage with Binance Smart Chain, and then we're very much dependent on the hard fork. And after
yeah.
that, we've just been in this waiting phase for ages. So,
Hmm.
how long ago, Mo, did all that work wrap up, and we've been waiting for that hard fork?
It was actually the first thing that we did was making sure and getting also sort of a green light, at least verbally, from
Mm,
Binance Smart Chain developers that this is possible. We're happy with that. It's something that
mm,
it was actually favored in a way and this is where you wanted to make sure you added these pre-compiles, which to support the SHA-3 signature or the
mm,
standard one that Icon uses. And that basically the first encounter, and actually our first engagement with Icon was making sure this has happened. And in fact, it did happen. There was already,
yeah,
and this is where the project afterwards just took off. Could say it's pretty much a year since this was ongoing, and we never understood at some point why it has stopped. Because every time the review process progressed somewhere, there wasn't necessarily and then just it pauses at some point. We have to just continue follow up.
yeah,
This has not stopped us from just actually completing the entire Binance Smart Chain end-to-end integration. We did carry on because we are able to launch our own private
yeah.
testnet, obviously the modified one.
Mm.
But it's been a year with trying to get a go ahead on the hard fork for Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah, and look, to put a bit of context for all the listeners as well, Mo, you touched on, the first conversation is identifying that yes, a chain will need to hard fork in order to be compatible, and this is where Ethereum, for example, it was very clear we weren't going down that path because there was no conversation to be had. There was no appetite for this kind of a hard fork for Ethereum, right? So obviously, no
Mm,
building took place. So just for context, for all the listeners, yes,
yeah,
Binance Smart Chain, Neo, all these chains, wherever there's a hard fork or something like this required, obviously the bills have kicked off because there is some kind of agreement again amongst parties that yes, we will do this. It is compatible. It is in our roadmap per se, and
mm,
yeah. So it's good to get context, but it also shows one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? Once you're dealing with these nations, which are the different blockchains,
yeah,
you can agree at the start, but as time has gone on, different things arise in each nations that take other priorities, and it's hard to, get it to where we need to originally when we started. So,
mm.
I guess that it's good to get a bit of backstory there. So, Mo, then if we talked about that, so did you deal with a lot of people on the Binance Smart Chain side, or just as you mentioned earlier, you literally build both sides of the contracts, the Icon and the Binance Smart Chain?
Actually, that's kind of the good thing about the this is BTB itself. It's at least, I would say, intrusive in terms of having to have to deal a lot with every blockchain. There's only one part which is minimal, I would say. Although this sometimes, as you saw with Binance, it's not always the case where you get this happening easily. Apart
Mm.
from that, everything you do is because you're building this with smart contracts. All what you need to do, the blockchain or the third project supports something similar to Solidity or smart contract, and you're able to just complete the integration end to end without having to deal so much with a particular blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, my dog heard a door
Yeah.
open. Okay, so if that's interesting, and so that's where that concept has come from. There, once you build a chain in that particular language, so then we can kind of, in a way, fork those contracts and deploy them to other chains, as long optimize them
Mm.
for those other chains and keep moving. This is something Scott used to always say, that once we built the first
Yeah.
integrations, we can start really expanding quite quickly. So this is definitely what you're confirming as well.
It is definitely the case. It's always the network effect. Once you do it somewhere and it becomes something that the community of that network itself will actually demand. If the community behind a smart chain has been become much more aware, for example, that's just an example, not necessarily
Mm,
BC or
mm,
they would create a demand on on the core developers or whoever has control and deciding the development roadmap for this to to enable and build these features.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so Mo, this is a bit of a off wing question. It was around, so well, the issue that we face. So now, okay, we've come. One of the biggest hurdles you faced was, well, we weren't getting that hard fork going. But then, as the dev work progressed for Moonbeam, one of the stages they got to, and you mentioned you ran these. Did you run into this famous gas issue that we've heard about now, where I believe it's the
Mm.
BMV keeps
Yeah.
an instance of basically all the chains, and obviously this component in prod became quite costly. Did you
Mm.
run into this during your testing for Binance Smart Chain? Any insights there?
Yeah, we have not particularly made an attempt to estimate the gas cost.
Mm,
That's for the simple reason we never ran onto official testnet to get the same reading as in Moon River, for
yeah.
example, or Moonbeam. However, there was indication that this likely going to be the case. The trying to implement the on-chain verification or having that light client implementation fully in a smart contract is a challenge. Any sort of bridge or something similar to Icon PTP today would probably face. And in some cases, even the sort of the tokenomics of particular network, which kind of built into the idea that okay, we need to refund or take into account the fees or the gas fees that's going to be an overhead on the other
Mhm.
networks. So yeah, it was something we did kind of knew that this might likely be the case.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we've arrived at this place where it has become evident. Moonbeam moved it and moved to mainnet, verified. Yep. Okay. Lots of fees here. So this component, what are some of the options? So one of the paths chosen was, well, we can still remove this. Yes, it's not trustless, but all the other functionality remains the same. So, what has it meant for you and your team and all the work you've done on Binance Smart Chain? Kind of keen to hear the pros and the cons of what's happening here.
Um, so so obviously we want full on just building the whole integration end to end. It was still important to go through the uh, you just basically want to have some kind of empirical or evidence-based approach that you build it, and then you worry about um, any blockers later as well.
Mm.
Um, but if we bring Icon Bridge into the picture here, then it's great because it's going to allow you this phased rollout of the project. There's a lot of heavy lifting that's been done
Mm.
on already. So multiple integrations that's been implemented and easily sort of applicable on also future, I would say, integration to anything that is Ethereum based. I'd say pretty much. Um, I like to say the word pluggable because you just basically want to all of what we built for BSC Moonriver is Solidity based, and you have that. And once you've removed the part where you need to worry about the verification, then you have simplified the rollout process.
Mm.
Beside that, obviously there's the cons here is you're compromised the trustless nature of the BTB. Which still we'd like to address. So we'd like to remain that trustless relay system where allow community of relay operators to get incentives and be incentivized for running the same way the validators or other network operators actually participate in BTB network. Um, so it has taken away something, but on the other hand, it will bring us very close to at least showcase parts of what we built. There's a lot of functionality that's still got to have. Having an extensible service layer where you basically add a new service, not just token transfer, be able to extend the what you have today with writing another smart contract to allow any other tomorrow we'll be able to transfer NFT transfers or
Mm.
other there's a lot of possibilities with the with Icon Bridge as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so an icon bridge basically removes that need for the hard fork. So now you don't even need to wait.
That's
So you can literally,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
that's what you and the team are up to at the moment. You're getting it in final, going through the final process, implementing the changes required to remove that component for to make it icon bridge, and then the testing and everything that's required to go to mainnet.
Yes. So we sort of did a bit of slight change from what BTB what the complete BTB is. It's almost a simplification of it. And we still need to obviously go through another testing phase and just make sure that with that I would say simplification of there isn't anything that um, 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 just impacted the integrity of the bridge end to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, but now you can, you mentioned you spun up a test net, but now, given with Icon Bridge, you can actually roll it out on the Binance Smart Chain test nets and run it on their test nets officially as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we sort of already started doing that
Yeah.
internally. It's already a test net running, a sort of test net in flight for Icon Bridge with BC.
Cool. All working fine, just as planned.
Yeah, we're there. Yeah,
Excellent.
we're very close, very close. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything around Icon Bridge or BTP, that you've worked on and thought, the community this would be great if they knew, or just anything you feel you haven't covered today that you wanted to talk about around those things?
I just briefly, obviously, the since we kind of mentioned ice, what
I
ice
was coming to that.
is
Yeah.
yes,
Tell us.
yeah, of course. Like we also making sort of somewhat good progress on ice. There's been a lot of change of perspective. Obviously, when how do you take that story of Icon PTB and hyper connect the world? Something that obviously struck me the most is how relevant Polkadot ecosystem to Icon is, and how obviously Icon started, I would say, early in that time. I would suppose Polkadot white paper just being written, or in the process of being, it's research and publication. So but it just struck me how close these projects are, and their mindset is not being maximalist on just, there's one network that rules them all,
Mm.
and how ICE kind of, you know, is a really compelling story to Icon. So that's there's also a plan where PTV also play a role as well for ICE and Icon.
Mhm.
We haven't fully obviously it could exist as is today, the way it is for Moonriver, Moonbeam, but there might be a bit more that we could also do to
Mm.
make those more optimized for ICE. That could be incentives, or how we build this into the tokenomics. Been a lot of conversation on this side too.
Yeah. Okay. So for context, Mo did touch on this earlier, but Mo and his team, Web3 Labs, are one of the teams also working on ice and snow,
Mm,
and they are fundamental key part driving and building the chain and all its features, including the tokenomics and things like that. So Mo is the man in the know with everything going on there, but it's really good to hear the way you've described it, Mo, and especially calling out how you feel they're so connected in that way. Because you're right, Dot is trying to build a chain of ecosystems that depend on it for security and then can move information and do whatever they want between each of the chains. While Icon,
mm,
I guess, has always been about interoperability, providing a solution um, that can patch into any chain, and then they yeah, the chains have their own security, obviously, but that's it. Just give that interoperability option, but not just for token transfers. The goal is to go much deeper than that. Um, yeah, okay, great. I'm going to get you back on, and we're going to do a separate ice and snow because that deserves its own,
yeah.
time in the limelight. But yeah, no, that's great. Look, I feel we've covered everything, Mo. I wanted to quiz you today about BTP. I feel you've given us some very honest answers around it. So now I'm being cheeky. Okay, so uh, with the issue, have you seen some of the solutions that are being passed around to resolve the gas issue for the trustless solution?
Yeah, I've been involved in some conversations. We did have about a 3 hour call with the Icon Loop team, as well as the key architects from on PTB as well. There's is a number of solutions. We have not decided on one yet. There's probably, like, at least I would say, I could only, if I give a number, there's at least 4 or 5
Hmm.
different design solutions that we've been discussing. Um, it's obviously there's no way to eliminate fully the having to rely on I would say on-chain verification. So
Mhm.
the gas cost it would exist in some form, or persist as an issue in some form. But we need to think about how we could actually at least remove most of that overhead. There's some other working group as well from, for example, the near team. They did potentially also come up with something themselves
Mhm.
on the existing architecture. We still want to see what this is like. But there are a number of solutions. There's potentially also changing some elements of the underlying structure of how the verification actually is being processed. So you can batch it up. There's things
Hmm.
like batching accumulators, or just to give examples. But the design itself can change as well. Might be quite different design from what we see today as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. I think for everyone listening, take away like this goes hand in hand. Well, oh, it could have been fixed, but I think the issue here is kind of the issue's been identified. Let's give us some breathing room to
Mm,
look through thoroughly and put all the solutions on the table and then pick something. So
yeah.
that's good to hear that, I didn't even say, you literally said that's what's been happening, which is fantastic. But in the meantime, we know we have a product that can work just like all the other products in the market. It still gives the value prop for ICX. And I'll make this a bit about ICX mode, because ultimately, while the facilitation, the interaction with it won't be enabled, in the background, that fee aggregation, the fees of the native chains when they're using the bridge are being stored in a contract. And when that feature is ultimately enabled, ICX holders will be able to buy it, which we know what happens. And this is where I come
Mm,
back to the bridge. Even Icon Bridge starts adding value to ICX, just makes ICX valuable, because ultimately ICX can be used to acquire the assets behind the bridge, the fees, and when that ICX is used, it's sent either to CPS or burnt. So instantly we're having a negative impact on inflation. But let me not crap on about that, Mo. You know a bit of that as well, given that you explore
mm.
tokenomics a fair bit with ice and snow. So thank you for sharing that with us. Where we land, maybe next update we'll have you on the show. You can talk through the solution that is actually being run with and give a bit more detailed comparison of how it differs from the original solution, if that ends up being the case. But overall, Mo, thank you for taking the time. I know you were a little bit unwell, but you've pushed through and really delivered.
I managed. Yeah, thanks, Fred.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks for
No
having
worries.
me.
No
Yeah.
worries. Take care. Chat soon.